Hello everybody, it's me Daniel, although you may know me as Capt Bergerson from the Highland Games Cast, or just Capt Bergerson from my own channel, and a bit of an exciting news update for you guys. So there's a Twitter user named Forest of Illusion who posted that they had come into possession of an F-Zero X N64 development cartridge, which happened to contain leftover data from the Space World 97 Zelda 64 build of Ocarina of Time, or what would eventually become Ocarina of Time. Now, a lot of it is pretty much the same as what we're used to, but there's actually a lot of stuff that's different from this, and a lot of stuff that we didn't find in the Giga leaks that happened several months ago. So it's really interesting to see. We don't know the exact date of it, but it looks like that Space World stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that corresponds to different magazine articles and promotional pictures and stuff that we had seen leading up to Ocarina of Time's release, you know, back in the 90s. So one of the first kind of cool things is there's a bunch of areas here. I'll show you in sort of a slideshow here what looks like earlier version of Dodongo's Cavern, which featured actually more bridges and less jumping onto these platforms here. There's also what looks like an early version of the Graveyard. Here's a side-by-side with a magazine screenshot from the 90s here, showing the same area. What looks like an early version of a dungeon that may be the Great Deku Tree. We have a few different rooms here, although the dungeon has windows, which the Great Deku Tree doesn't have exterior windows, but this is a very, famous sort of screenshot from the game back in the day, and it's kind of cool to see that environment kind of in a better picture quality here as well. There's also what looks like an archery range. Here again, the screenshot from the magazine versus what they found in the level viewer here, as well as what could be an early version of Kakariko Village, and a few other environments here that look pretty familiar, like Hyrule Castle. But of all of these discoveries, my favorite one to come across here is the early version of the item sprites for your inventory. Now, some of these, like the bombs and Deku Nuts and sticks and red and blue potion and empty bottle and the fish, are just identical to what we see in the final game. But some of these have little differences and tweaks, like the coloration on the slingshot and the bow and the boomerang, and the Ocarina of Time having the spiritual stones actually inserted into the item itself. And there's some things here that are just completely new and completely different, like the spiritual stones looking more like musical symbols rather than corresponding to the different races that hold on to those stones. The sage medallions are slightly different, while the forest, fire, and water ones look the same. The spirit medallion is gold instead of orange, the light medallion is white, and the shadow medallion is black instead of purple. There's also the fairy in a bottle looks totally different here, and to kind of correspond with those different medallions are different sort of powers that you could combine with the bow. So in early versions of the game, you could actually combine the sage medallion that you would get with the bow. For example, the fire medallion would give you fire arrows rather than them being their own individual items. But here we have more that correspond with the spirit, light, and shadow medallions, and it really makes me wonder what sort of gameplay mechanic those would do, like what functionality they would have, what effect would those have on the enemies. A shadow arrow, a spirit arrow, what would that even look like? I assume that this is an early version of the Kokiri sword, which has a green sort of emerald gem instead of the red one that we see in the final game. The iron and hover boots also have a little bit of a different design here that I kind of like how they look here. They look a little bit more unique and different from the Kokiri boots. The wallet sizes look a little different. I'm assuming that instead of gauntlets, we got these power bracelets, not unlike classic Zelda games. And I'm really not sure what these things are. There's a green, blue, and red thing here. I'm really unsure what it represents here. And those are the most notable things that I could see from all of these, this new information, these new sprites and things that are coming out here. There's more new environments, and it seems like a lot of this stuff is just coming out kind of rapid fire over the day, so we might have to do a follow-up video later. But thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little update, and let me know what you think is the coolest part about all of this here. There's lots of new and different areas, or some that are just tweaked, like just kind of a little bit different than what we've seen in the final game. So it's really fascinating to see how all of this stuff has changed, at least in my opinion. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening to me ramble, and hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.